brought my own clock. It doesn't work, but at least as a prop, it's very effective. A quick word to the cameraman, you don't ever have to give a side view of me. We know what I look like. I'm just saying. I want to start off by saying what I think everybody feels at this point. Wow, what an unbelievable convention. I don't know if I inspired anybody here or if I'm going to inspire any secular Jews, but boy, was I inspired by this Shabbos. What the most amazing thing. Everyone is here. I mean, everyone. And we don't appreciate it. When it was said at the beginning of the convention that anybody here could have carried the entire convention, it is by no means an exaggeration. We had Yosef Mendelovich here. If you're not in my age group, you don't appreciate what that means. When I was a high school kid, we used to go out demonstrating at the Russian consulate in Glen Cove, demanding that they free Yosef Mendelovich. 2, 4, 6, 8, let our people emigrate. We were out there cheering, Swoboda! Yeah, we were out there praying that maybe the refuseniks would get a chance. And then I heard him the first time in the Youngersville Woodmere in 1980. And he just came out of Siberia. I mean, what does that mean? What an unbelievable individual. I had the schus for the first time this Shabbos, just for a few minutes, to meet Tuvia Singer. He's one of the most famous people in the Jewish world. You can go online and see him debating every Christian that ever lived, you know? I think he got 20 minutes over the convention, you know? I have to say, on a personal note, and it's a little sensitive, that I had the schus of having my Rabbi Foya here. I had an opportunity to develop a kesh with him. He would come to our family simchas, and he is one of the greats of our generation that is not tapped enough. And the fact that we had the schus to be able to have him here for Shabbos, that alone raised the kedusha of the event. I once said this over at a yeshiva where he was speaking from time to time, and they never invited him back. So he said, don't praise me too much. So, mixer shvach the fun of. Not only the unbelievable personality here, everybody. This is Klal Yisrael. What you're seeing at this convention is the best in Klal Yisrael. Our friends at Torah Anytime are here. Chazak is here. My good friend Mendel Berlin, who puts out the Torah Sweets that was given out, is here. Everybody is here. It's just the most amazing thing. And of course, you've seen the staff, but they have to stay in the background because there are so many other people here that they have to try to fit in. But when they said that anyone could carry the convention, they're also talking about themselves. I remember seeing Matt Schropp in a room with 1,000 teenagers and the work that he was able to do. You don't see that. You see him running around with a walkie-talkie, you know what I mean? Waste of talent, you know. Chaim Samson, so incredibly talented, only invites me every 5 years because of the trauma that I remind him of. When we went to England, he had to drive me, and they have roundabouts with 35 exits, and we kept getting lost. And whenever I see him, he goes, there's no roundabouts in Stamford. You know, I was like, I'm sorry I traumatized you. He said, that's not how you traumatized me. When you got up and said, Chaim Samson is still single. Will some nice girl please marry this guy? That was traumatic. Yeah? So much talent. And the most important, I have to tell you, and I'm saying this, with everybody here, the greatest part of this convention is you. The people who came here this weekend is unbelievable people. The convention is sold out. I couldn't get a room. I'm in the Holiday Inn in Bridgeport. You don't know that hallway keeps going. You just keep walking and walking. This morning I took a bus. It was great. There's no rooms. It's completely packed. You know, Why do you think they give Rabbi Feldheim all these classes in the middle of the night? He doesn't have a room. You know what I mean? They keep him up till 5 o'clock in the morning so he won't notice, and then put out the coffee, you know? Oh, which reminds me, I have a little note here from Rev Gav. Please mention me, okay? Well, I have to tell you, the participants who are here, I had a chance to talk to many of them. And I have to tell you, that really worked out well, because sometimes I go to one of these conventions and I eat so much, I'm sick. This time I didn't have a chance, you know? I said to my wife, I'll go get your food. I came back an hour later. She says, where's the food? I said, I was talking to people. Every 2 steps, somebody else wants to talk to me. And every person is more fascinating than the next. What a collection of unbelievable people. You have people with canes and people with walkers and people in wheelchairs and people with seeing-eye dogs, which is unusual. Because I always used to go to the mall and I'd see that sign that says, no dogs except seeing-eye dogs. And I thought, who is that for? I have confidence in you. I'll give that another couple of seconds to move around the room. You see, even the people who don't get the joke are laughing because they know I'm funny. So they understand it's a chisaron in themselves if they didn't get the joke. It has nothing to do with me. And such amazing people, and I look forward to be able to maintain that. I know that when I see you, even months, years from now, you'll still have to be wearing your eye tag, so I'll be able to identify you, you know? I said, oh, hi, Fred. You remember me? Yes, of course. You're from Brooklyn. No, I'm not. Oh, yes, you are. Everybody's from Brooklyn. Anyway, so I do have some content. Luckily, my clock's not working. Everybody's been talking about Kiruv this weekend. I want to take the negative approach. I think it was Woody Allen once who said, I want to leave you with a positive thought. I don't have one, so I'll give you 2 negative ones instead. Rabbi Yisrael Salanta used to tell his Bachrim in yeshiva in Eastern Europe, learn stark so the Jews in Paris don't intermarry. What's meant? It means that the stronger you are, the stronger the Balabatim in the town will be. And the stronger they are, the stronger the next town will be, and the next town. And the ripple effect will be such that by the time it reaches Paris, they'll at least have enough sense of Jewish identity that they don't intermarry. And the message, I think, is tremendous, and that is that at the end of the day, the strongest impact depends on how much you work on yourself. And the more you work on yourself, the greater is going to be the experience that you can do. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach would, of course, be invited to many chasanas, and he would stop in, and he saw there was a bacher from his yeshiva who almost every night was at a chasana. So finally he goes over to the bacher and he says, don't you have night seder? And he says, yes, Rabbi, but there's a mitzvah. I want to do the mitzvah. He says, your mitzvah now is to be sitting and learning. So he says, Kvod Rosh Yeshiva, you go to weddings every night. So he says, I stop in for 5 minutes. He says, I'll also stop in for 5 minutes. He says, I can be Mesameach HaChazan and Kala in 5 minutes because I spent all my night seders learning. If you sit down and learn, you can also do that in 5 minutes. The stronger you are, the greater the impact is that you're able to have. When I was talking in the class about how to answer questions, I say the hardest question to answer is the one you can't answer for yourself. And the stronger you are, the stronger your Shabbos table is, the stronger your home is, the more people come. Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People talk about your circle of influence. What does that mean? The world is filled with unreasonable people, right? Your parents are unreasonable, your children are unreasonable, your spouse is unreasonable, your neighbors are unreasonable, your boss is unreasonable, everybody's unreasonable except for me, right? Everybody's unreasonable. And if my happiness is going to be dependent upon people doing what I want, I'm going to be unhappy a lot. The only person that I have control over at the end of the day is me. And the more I expand myself and my sphere of influence. So, there was a time when my wife noticed that my daughters weren't really davening mincha. So, as you know, children listen with their eyes, not with their ears. So what did she do? She would go out, instead of davening mincha in her room, she would daven outside in the living room where all the kids were, sitting on the couch waiting for someone to clean the house. And one by one, all of my kids joined her. Because they saw she was able to expand that circle of influence and who she is and what she is. So at the end of the day, and Rabbi Ephraim Shapiro spoke about this Friday night, Arvis, supposed to be davening Arvis, Arevus. What does that mean? Responsibility. And that's really the point that I want to make here this morning. We have to take responsibility. And that's very hard because, and I tell kids when I teach all the time, you're at a disadvantage. You've never seen an adult. You've seen me and my generation. We never grew up. My parents went through the Depression. They went through World War II. You meet Holocaust survivors. You see all the things they went through, And my generation didn't grow up. Dave Barry, who was a humorist with the Miami Herald, wrote a book called Dave Barry Turns 40. And he says, now that I'm 40, I have to begin to realize that I have more in common with June and Ward than the beaver. Now, for those of you who don't appreciate the reference, there was a TV show called Leave It to Beaver about an 8-year-old boy, which means that at the age of 40, I have to begin to recognize I'm not an 8-year-old boy. But until then, it's obvious. Someone said to me, am I obligated to support my children? So I said, well, the Gemara says you have to support your children till they can stand on their own. How old's that? 5. They're a little slow, 6. Is that? Then you bring them in and you say, son, it's time for you to make it in the world. Good luck, yeah? So the person looked at me shocked. He said, well, it's different today. I said, yeah, today it's about 45, and that's only because they're expecting the Yerusha, you know what I mean? So, but there was a time when you stood up and took responsibility. My generation took responsibility, and therefore they were adults. When you're an adult, it's an entirely different attitude. I don't know if you're in my age group, you remember, would you ever call one of your parents' friends by their first name? It was unheard of. It was Dr. this and Mrs. that and Mr. this. You never called anyone by their first name. Today, if one of your children's friends come in and say, oh, hello, Mrs. So-and-so. Oh, I feel like you're talking to my mother-in-law. Call me Shani. Okay, Shani. Now, what is a kid supposed to do at that point? There's no adults. I used to teach in seminary, and sometimes the girls would bring their mothers, and they would sit in the class. To be fair, there were some mothers, they traveled a lot. They had better attendance than their daughters did, But I'd see them sitting in class, and it was easy to tell because, they were both dressed exactly the same way. So the mommies were also dressed like an 18-year-old girl. So, at some point, you got to suck it up and become an adult, and it's very hard because our generation doesn't see those kind of role models. We remember them, but we were raised to be children. Our parents suffered, and they wanted us to have everything, and so they gave us a sense of entitlement, and it becomes very difficult then for us to do something. So, the point is, we have to start to accept responsibility. Don't you love that when people say, why doesn't somebody do something? And I always tell them, I am. If I have to save clients by myself, I will. You want to help? Well, it will be 2 of us. You know what I mean? But it means we accept responsibility. It's not their problem, it's my problem. I have to deal with it. I'm the adult in the room. But we don't see this today. I think one of the last adult presidents was President Reagan, yeah? I remember when a car bomb went off in Lebanon, he got on television and said, I'm the commander-in-chief, the buck stops here, I'm responsible. When Bill Clinton, who was the first baby boomer to be elected president, was caught lying under oath. He said, "It's not my fault. They shouldn't have asked me the question. If they didn't ask me the question, then I wouldn't have lied." That's reassuring. But this is the problem, you understand? Okay, I don't know if you remember when I was a kid, you walk down the street, you slip, you fall, you break your leg. The storekeeper comes out and yells at you, "Stupid kid, why don't you watch where you're going?" He calls your dad. Your dad said, "Stupid kid, why don't you watch where you're going?" Takes you to the hospital. The doctor says, "Stupid kid, why don't you watch where you're going?" After that, you watch where you're going. Now you break your leg, and right away you think, who can I sue? This has to be somebody else's fault. It can't be my fault. I can't be held responsible. They give out an award each year in honor of the woman who sued McDonald's because she bought a cup of coffee, held it between her legs, it spilled and burnt her, and she crashed. And she said, "It's not my fault. They should have written that the coffee is hot." And that is why to this day, when you go any place and buy a cup of coffee, it says, "Caution, contents might be hot." Did it end there? No, of course not. Every year someone wins an award. A guy was driving his Studebaker and put it into cruise control, which in his mind meant automatic pilot. And he went in the back to get a drink, and of course it veered off the road and crashed, and he sued Winnebago because nowhere does it say you have to continue to drive the car while it is in cruise control. And he won a new Winnebago. And now it says, "Caution, must continue to drive the car," because you can't expect me to figure it out. And that's why on a power saw, I saw a warning label: "Do not cut wood on your lap." Now that's a good idea on a lot of levels. I saw on a hairdryer, "Do not use underwater." I saw a Superman costume. It was written on the Superman costume, "Does not allow wearer to fly." My all-time favorite is Planters Peanuts. The jar is shaped like a peanut. The mascot is Mr. Peanut, who is a peanut with a top hat and a cane. If you look at the ingredients, it says peanuts. And on the side, there's a warning label: "Caution, may contain peanuts." But everything's too hard for us. It's somebody else's fault. During a particular dark period of my life, I was a mashgiach in a yeshiva. Talk about trauma, Rabbi Sampson? I'll tell you about that. Rabbi Victor Miller once said, "I knew I'd be the doorman. I didn't know I'd be the doormat." Anyway, so I had this one boy in yeshiva who was much more mature than everybody else. I know this because he used to tell me how much more mature he was than everybody else. Because everybody else came right after high school, and he had spent a year in college, and so he was much more mature. So one time when he's telling me this, I said, maturity means responsibility. Davening starts at 7:15. You don't get up to 11. Sometimes you don't get out of bed until 12. Why do you think you're so mature? And without meeting a beat, he said, maybe you should be asking yourself why you can't motivate me to get out of bed. Because at the end of the day, this is your failure, Rabbi, isn't it? So there's no problem that's so big you can't blame it on somebody else. Why should I take responsibility? I heard Rabbi Zev left, the Rav Moshav Matasyo, once he was talking, he says, "Today people are willing to be moisa nefesh for Torah. Moisa nefesh. If you buy them a house, you buy them a car, and you support them, then they have Mesiras Nefesh." He said, "What's the Mesiras Nefesh? They'll get up every morning and go to Kollel?" I said this over a few times to Kollelite, and they said, "Not every morning, but certainly many mornings." He said, "I had people who used to learn by candlelight because they couldn't afford the electricity. I knew somebody who had pasta every night because they couldn't afford anything else." And I'm talking about in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm not talking about in Yerushalayim. He said, "Mosa Nefesh." What does that mean, Mesiras Nefesh? It was a great article once where somebody wrote this article in the paper about they went to Yankee Stadium or Shea Stadium, and they made a mincha minyan, hundreds of people. What a Kiddush Hashem. And someone wrote in and goes, I thought that was like dying for your beliefs, not davening mincha. Like in a ball game, you know what I mean? Like, such a Kiddush Hashem, But everything's hard for us. Everything is hard for us. And that's why I'm speaking as a regular person. I only speak about myself. I don't know if you've noticed that. It is one of my favorite topics. But anyway, I wasn't really great at getting up in the morning. We had a very late family. Yeah, I was number 5 out of 6. All my brothers were older. Nobody went to sleep. My parents were always working, Most second graders didn't watch Johnny Carson back then, but I did. I was up very late. And so getting up in the morning was never one of my strong points, And sometimes I'm up late because I'm just a late person. And my wife says to me, you should really go to sleep or you're going to whimper in the morning. I said, what do you mean? Because you don't hear yourself. I set the alarm to wake up my wife, like all husbands, because I can't be expected to get out of bed. I wake up my wife. It's her job to wake me up. And she says, sometimes I wake you up and you go, it's not easy getting out of bed, Sometimes I'm so tired, I don't know how I get out of bed. I go to the bathroom, I wash up, I get dressed. Everything takes forever. I get my tefillin, I open the door, and I'm still in bed. I dream the whole thing. And my first thought was, oh no, I gotta do it again. If you were in my age group, did you ever hear your mother say, I can't make Pesach? I can't make Pesach. My parents made Pesach and they both worked, you know what I mean? They had 6 kids, all of them were dysfunctional, you know what I mean? And you make Pesach, you make Shabbos because you have to make Shabbos. You never heard them, I can't. Today, it's hard for us. Everything is hard for us. And I'm not saying that, facetiously. It's true. We're a generation. We're standing up and taking responsibility is so difficult. Why can't somebody take care of this? Why can't somebody do this? My father, he had to leave school after 9th grade during the Depression to help support his family, And he used to have an expression. He'd say, do you need a hand? The person would say, yeah, look at the end of your arm. One of my brothers, when he says that over today, he starts foaming at the mouth. He's so, how could he say that to me? Because that's what he did. Nobody helped him, And the idea is we have to take responsibility, and we look around and we say, it's that one's fault, and it's that one's fault, and why isn't anyone doing anything? What? But you understand, that's us. We're them. We're the them that we keep talking about. So let's talk about us. That is the challenge of our generation, to be big, to grow up, to set examples. And it's not easy. My kids used to get a big kick out of it, because I am, at the time when I was teaching and things like that, and I was considered, a rabbi of some renown, and for people who didn't know me, and like they get a call and they say, there's a parent on the phone. So one of my kids said, use your rabbi voice. Hello. Yes, this is Rabbi Orlofsky. Yes. And all my kids are giggling. And I said, one second, hold it down. There's a real person here. Yes. It's hard. It's hard for us to be responsible, for us to take care of things and to feel that sense that we are in charge. And we have to teach it to our children. Somebody had asked a question about kids going off the derech. Why do kids go off the derech? I'll give you the answer. I think it's very simple. I started in the Hebrew Academy of Nassau County in 1964, which was 20 years before I was born, according to my revised biography. I figure if Superman can have 3 reboots, so could I. Anyway, and when I went, Orthodoxy was dead in America. Everyone knew Orthodoxy was dead. And when I went, they made you feel like a hero because you were going to an Orthodox school. They couldn't throw you out. There weren't enough of us, So if you were really bad, they'd send you to the office, and Rabbi Findel would sigh. He says, I'm so surprised. I know your family. They're such nice people. Go back to class, and I hope I never have to have this conversation with you again. Now, every kid gets a message. Yeah? Sometimes explicitly and sometimes it's implied. We don't need you here. Step out of line and you're gone. I got 3 kids waiting to take your place. Yeah? And so everybody feels like nobody needs me. People walk around scared when people tell me my kid he's not off yet, he's on the edge. I said, get him involved. Call the people at Project Inspire, say I have a teenager, I want him to learn with somebody. I want to get him involved, I want him to do something. Let him stuff packets. Let him feel like he's needed in a world that says, we don't need you. Somebody once said to me, what do we need all these Bali Tshuva for? We don't have enough places in our yeshivas as they are. There's no parking. We need more from Jews. Where are they going to park? Something to be said for that. Halavai, that'll be our problem. We'll have so many people that we won't know what to do with them. We'll have to open up Mostos and Mostos, Project Inspire school network all around the country, that there'll be so many people coming in demanding a Jewish education. We have to solve, but it's up to us. We say it's a problem. Yeah, we have to take responsibility. What does that mean? First, you have to love yourself. First, you have to make yourself into somebody. You have to be somebody that somebody wants to be like. Does anybody here really want to be a role model? Yeah? I was a role model once for an onion roll, but that's a different story. It's a long and very complicated story. I don't want to go into it. But the fact of the matter is, you are from Jew, everybody's watching you, and you know it. Whether you know it or not, you should know it. They see you, and they right away, they know that you're from Jew, and they're thinking. And I always make an effort. When I see somebody, I say hello to them. I try to share a thought. I was in a supermarket, we were checking out, and it was just a mob scene, and then you could see the cashier was stressed out. And I said, wow, you're doing such a great job. Could I get you a coffee? Would I be, because I have a few minutes, She's like, no, that's okay. I have a break coming up. I said, it's a madhouse over here. I don't know how you handle it, That was it. The whole thing took me 2 minutes. She walked away feeling better than she had before I got there. And that's all, that's maybe all I can do. All I know how to do is talk, but I do that pretty good. So talk to people. Say a nice word. A smile doesn't cost you anything. Yeah? We have to build ourselves, and we have to share it with others. And I want to end with a great story. And I'm under the impression I may have said this at a Project Inspire convention 8 years ago. Now, that's not a problem for most people, but people tell me that they watch my videos over and over again. I know how they feel. I do too. So it could be you've heard this story already, but a good story is like a good song, And when Baruch Chait and my good friend Rabbi Schreibel was singing last night, someone was like, I heard these songs already, boo! Yeah? A good song is a work of art. What a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I share the story. I was running NCSY, and I took off a year to go learn in Eretz Yisrael when I got married. And I used to train advisors, leaders, and I used to tell them this story. The Aguda Convention, 1929, so the Chavetz Chaim got up and said, everybody has a chiyuv to do kiruv v'choikim. This was in Europe in 1929. You have to reach out to people, you have to work with people. Fine. Later in the convention, he said, I want to speak again. Now, it was packed. It was packed, almost as packed as the Project Inspire convention. It was there almost, So they told Reb Chaim Oizer, Reb Simcha Zisel, could you move off to the side here? The Chavetz Chaim wants to speak again, Meir Simcha, sorry. And he gets up and he says, people said the Chavetz Chaim didn't mean me. When he said everybody, he didn't mean me. I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough. I'm not that interesting. I'm not this. So he says, I'll give you a mushal. He says, there was a nobleman who drove around investigating all of the little villages in his tract of land, in his area. And he comes to this one village. They offer him a drink of water. He spits it out. He says, it's sandy. You can't drink this, it's terrible. He goes, but that's how the water is here. He says, I'm making an edict not to use any water until you boil it. Fine. A few weeks later, he sees in the distance a fire. Gets into his wagon, he runs out, and the village is burning down. He says, why don't you put out the fire? He goes, we're waiting for the water to boil. He says, when I said to boil the water, I'm talking about for washing and for cooking, but when there's a fire, you take any water that there is and you throw it on. I knew the story. So after I got married, I took off a year, I went to Israel to learn, and the learning went better than it had ever gone. And I was on leave of absence from NCSY. I was supposed to come back, and I didn't want to go back. I wanted to stay and learn. So I went to Moshe Chait, who was, I was learning Chavetz Chaim, and he says, look, I'm the Geir B'Dava. I'll send it to Rosh Scheinberg. Like Rosh Scheinberg's going to send me back to NCSY, yeah? I was there for half an hour. On the one hand, Klal Yisrael, on the one hand, Torah, on the one hand, Klal Yisrael. Finally, he said, if you don't have anybody take your place, you have to go back. So I went back to Rabbi Chait. He says, now we go to Rebbe Yoshev. Now, Rebbe Yoshev doesn't have time for this. You know, he has hours. Everybody lines up. There's a Rosh Hashiva. Sitting next to him is a woman with a chicken, you know what I mean, and me, and we're waiting in line. And we go into Rebbe Yoshev. It was less than 5 minutes. He says, is there anyone to take your place? I said, not now. It could be at some point. He says, mitzvah efshar piachem, fine. Efshar, you have to do it. And Rabbi Chait's Gabbai was with him, and he said, would you say that he's mechuyev? So Rabbi Yoshev says, merutza. Yeah, it's the right thing to do. And people kept asking me, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I'm really torn because there's my obligation to Klal Yisrael, but I really want to stay and learn. Now, that Purim, which came after this story, they had just come out with kosher French wines. When I grew up, the only wine was extra heavy Malaga. Came in a gallon jug. You had to cut a slice of it and put it in the cup. It was like, when the Gemara says I drank the Arba Kosas and I had a headache till Shavuos, it was extra heavy Malaga, and there's no question about it. So they came with these French wines. You could actually drink it, and I drank too much, and I actually became tipsy. Now, I didn't know it, but the mashkiach, Rabbi Kanarik, saw me crying. I didn't know it. There were tears coming down my face, and he calls me up. He says, Rabbi Dovid, what's the matter? I said, it's not fair, because I can help other people. I can't stay and learn for myself. So he says to me, Rabbi Dovid, I'll tell you a story. And he tells me the story with the Chavetz Chaim at the convention, which I had told already a dozen times. So I wasn't that drunk, you understand? I was able to follow the story, and I was already ready with my punchline, with my zinger, you know? And he says, when there's a fire, you take whatever water there is and you throw it on. And I said, Rabbi, but the water's still not fit to drink. Rabbi Kanarik escaped with the mir from Europe. He was in Shanghai. He came to Eretz Yisrael. He looks up at me and says, Reb Dovid, halavai, we just put out the fire. In Mitzvah Hashem, we are the ones to put out the fire. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi Orlofsky. Reaching out to people has a little bit of a sense of a byproduct. And the byproduct is what we do for our families and how it enhances our families, our children. And let me leave you with this, and I'm going to introduce the following speaker. The topic for the next speech is finding family. I would imagine, I haven't heard the speech, but maybe it's something about family that's lost, because it says finding family. I would venture to say, and I just say what keeps me going as a human being, one of the reasons why I do this, I feel a sense of achrayus, responsibility. But I probably will never meet my great-great-great-grandchildren. I don't think anybody in this room is going to meet their great-great-great-great-grandchildren. grandchildren, alavai. That's a metzias adavar. But we live in a very turbulent world. So how do you know that your children, your great-grandchildren, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, your great-great-grandchildren are going to go in the derech hayashar? So it's muftach that the Chassam Sofer said, Hashem says to the Jewish people, when you take care of my children, I'll take care of your children. That should be a bracha.